Now, for those of you who maybe haven't been following our competitive landscape in Age of Empires 2 for the last maybe 6 or 7 months, maybe even longer than that now, actually, there has been one performer who just hasn't been as consistent, which is kind of weird considering he's known as Mr. Consistent, right? Like he's a machine, he's the finisher. And of course, I'm talking about Vilesa. Ever since his appearance at NAC 4, where he finished sixth at the LAN, he's been kind of failing to qualify for tournaments or maybe going out early in tournaments, which is a little weird for a guy that we would always put in the top 10 discussion, maybe slotting in there around seventh, sixth, fifth sometimes. He's known as the Viper Killer because he's won about 50% of his sets against Viper, which, as you know, across our scene is pretty impressive and might be the best win rate of any player against the Snake to date. But recently, and when I say recently, I mean today, he did come up with a big set win to make it into Warlords 3. And I think the most impressive part about it was the fact that he just looked clean. And that's what we know about Vilesa. Like he has great build orders. Once he gets the 3TC, he's going to be perfectly prepared with the transitions. His micro isn't going to be the best, but it's going to be good enough to get the job done. And that's what we saw today. He actually took a 4-0 win against Capoch. And the funny thing about it is that the guy who kicked Vilesa out in a super hard fought 5-game series in the first qualifier was Mihai. And Capoch had actually just come off of a victory against Mihai where he beat him 3-1. Now, to briefly go through the games, Enclosed was a classic Vilesa masterpiece. Capoch had picked Malay there, which I thought was a little bit of a weird civilization pick, but Capoch was pressuring. He defended the early attack from Vilesa, and then Vilesa just made all the right decisions, got the boom rolling, and then took advantage of his favorable civ in the Hindistanis. We went on to Kawasan, and Vilesa picked Portuguese once again with a better civ late game. He took the middle control. He had crossbows all over the place. He was cutting off resources. You love to see it. And then we go on to Compass for game 3. And I think it's fair to call this game kind of a disaster for Capoch, right? Vilesa was microing his fires all over the place, Byzantines against Bengalis. So obviously you're going to have the advantage with the fire galleys. But Vilesa took it up to another level here. He just kept getting favorable trade-offs. It actually ended in a situation where Capoch tried to sneak 2 villagers over to Vilesa's little quarter of the map because he wanted to do some damage. He knew his opponent was up to Castle Age, and Vilesa managed to spot it. He saw the 2 pigs that Capoch had found, and he knew there were villagers around, and he walled it off. So a really heartbreaking moment there for Capoch. And then the final game, Northern Isles, once again, the finisher just kicking in, right? He's doing all the right things. He's setting himself up for late game. He's taking map control. He's sniping fish. He's got impeccable micro. He's scouting. He's paying attention to everything that Capoch is doing, and even mixed in a little sneaky landing, which is nice to see. Not something you see all that often from him. Going forward, though, we'll see if Vilesa, this is a return to form for him or if this is an anomaly. I mean, it's been so inconsistent for his standards, right? And he hasn't really put in the time or the practice that he used to. So that explains the form. But maybe now, with a little bit of time to prepare for the main event, he can formulate some builds, he can get some practice partners, he can put those hours in, and potentially is a guy that we could see making it to a top 8 or maybe even a top 4 like he used to. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to what he can do in Warlords 3. I think it was a huge win against Capoch, and actually it's kind of a little return to an unpleasant memory for Capoch because Vilesa did kick him out of the last Warlords 2 qualifier last year. But other than that, really, really impressive stuff there for the Finn, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do going forward. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think he's going to perform in Warlords 3? Do you think the inconsistencies are going to rise again? Do you think he's going to get a bad matchup? Let me know. I'm going to be casting Warlords 3 qualifiers this weekend. I hope you join me, twitch.tv/Dave_AOE. I'll see you there. Peace.